King Kong's got a big dong, almost as big as the one movie studios have for him. With countless movies and sequels, you gotta wonder and ask, why? What makes him so unique? Is it the story, the island, the characters, the brutality that comes with it? Well, in the case of this film, it's quite obviously the last, as while this film is one of the most visually striking films I've seen in a while, it's also one of the most brutal and violent. It takes the brutal, dark tone of Godzilla 2014 and amps up the brutal, but almost completely removes the dark tone, leaving it to be a confusing mishmash of ideas. Part goofy monster movie, part slasher, part Vietnam Apocalypse Now remake, part environmentalist movie akin to The Lost World. It makes for a truly bizarre yet oddly fascinating movie experience. And what better way to explain it than to get right into the film. The film begins with a plane going down, probably because another asshole kid shined a laser at it. It's somewhere over the Pacific in 1944, and there's an American soldier and a Japanese soldier, and if you know anything about history, you know how they feel about each other. They fight a bit before Kong appears, and we get another news-like intro, this time much more heavily focused on the war instead of just the bomb, setting up the Vietnam War feel. It is here where we find Bill Rand and Houston, scientists looking to explore Skull Island, who end up using the end of the Vietnam War and the soldiers leaving as leverage for their argument against the senator. Hell, they even mention the tests that were to kill Godzilla, further cementing these universes connected. If only it was good. Oh, and they need a military escort, maybe someone like Shaft or that Dan Death Note. Well, they get both and more as we cut to an airbase, specifically the Da Nang Air Base, I think, where soldiers are preparing to leave. The soldiers you'll need to know but will barely get any development are Mills, Rayleigh, aka the dude from Good Place and Loki, Slivko, Cole, and Preston Packard, who I'll just call Packard for short, who's clearly also not ready to leave the war. We also meet Chapman. He's got a family, so you know he's gonna die. The soldiers start to leave, but Packard gets a call about the survey job, headed by a job called Landsat. Rand and Houston go into a bar to look for a former SAS to help them navigate the jungle. Unfortunately, they end up finding Loki in the bar. Sad his movie Crimson Peak didn't do well, which sucks because it actually looks like a good movie. His actual name is James, who very clearly sets up he's a badass by beating up some random assholes with a cold kid. I don't know why, something about money. Oh, and they take a dig at his character, basically saying he's yet to find his purpose.
Men go to war in search of something, Mr. Conrad. If you'd found it, you'd be home by now.
Damn. Anyways, we meet Mason Weaver, an anti-war photographer, who goes onto the boat and is greeted by Landsat Steve. So his first name is the group he is a part of, or did they just add that in case people forgot the group that was heading this mission? I'll just call him Steve because I think that's his actual name, like first name. Either way, she talks to Packard, who, while respecting her for being into shit, tells her a bit more about his character and how he didn't appreciate her camera showing the horrors of war, being confronted with the bad things they were doing in the war that didn't even need to happen. Nice bit of character shading there. They have a meeting with the two groups, scientists and the military. Oh, and there's more characters in case you were so invested in the others already. Sunlin and Nievs, I think that's how you pronounce them. I might be missing some, but they get lost in the shuffle, you know what I'll mean. And if you just watch this film, Houston explains how he'll essentially bomb the shit out of the island, for science purposes, to map out the island. They start having a good old time taking photos and working out, and we see that the top of the boat can clearly hold 5 regular helicopters and 1 big one. Keep that in mind later. They all start getting on the helicopters and flying to a storm surrounding the area. Basically, the entire reason this island hasn't been discovered by the Russians or anyone else yet. They start flying, and holy shit, why is there twice the number of helicopters and more? I get that the bomb the boat has helicopters, but I think they're overestimating the amount of space. I know it's for the scene where Kong smashes a bunch of helicopters, and that scene is awesome, but still, couldn't you make them come on 2 or 3 boats? Plus, there's several extra big helicopters, I think 2 or 3, I don't know, it's just the way they shot that makes you think more. I mean, the math of the amount of helicopters isn't horribly off, but still, there's just a few more than spatial logic would allow. Just have one more boat, so the 13, I believe, helicopters make sense. They get through the storm and admire the view, before dropping bombs. Scientific instruments, destroying the wildlife, which is, pretty normal looking, nothing very visually interesting, just kind of regular looking deer and other animals. Oh, and they set up the hollow earth idea even more, as the bedrock is practically hollow. But then shit happens. Now, I know what I said about the amount of helicopters, it doesn't really make sense. Well, here's the payoff. Probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, for the most part. Kong starts destroying the helicopters and one soldier gets eaten as Steve eats a sandwich. Nice cutaway, clever. Unlike the characters, I'm pretty sure his line about soldiers not being scientists and later one about not being dogs on a porch are the only lines he has. He's just kinda in the background, same with 10 to 20 other soldiers, which doesn't make sense. They should have really had 2 or 3 boats, because even after several helicopters are destroyed and people are eaten, squashed or thrown away and blown up, there's still several of them in the background. which doesn't really make much sense. Anyways, I still do like this scene as we get an awesome reveal of Kong, like a full one since the opening only showed his head and hands. Kong continues destroying helicopters. I mean, that's basically the entire scene besides some people on the ground being thrown or squashed, but it's done really well with some dynamic shots, making it really engaging. Damn, dude's having the worst day, insulted and then straight up squashed like a bug. Not like the other dude fares much better. He gets fucking smacked into oblivion and onto a helicopter and then presumably torn apart by the rotors. Or maybe not considering how high the rotors were above the top of the helicopter. Maybe he broke the foundation of it or something. So basically I'm saying if this film had the accompanying blood with each death, this would be rated R for sure. It's kind of weird. It's a weird thing with blockbusters. At least during this time, they could have as much violence as they wanted, as long as there's no gore like guts, blood, brains, skeleton, veins, and other bodily fluids and parts. It makes no sense, but alright, led to this. And apparently they've been fighting for so long it's turned to dusk, or maybe dawn. I don't know, when they began to enter the island, it seemed like the middle of the day, so maybe the storm affects how the sun reaches them, if it would reach them at all and not be blocked by the storm. Also, while I like the fact that the scene is long and develops a lot of cool ideas you can do with Kong destroying and smashing helicopters and gives almost like little vignettes of each helicopter being destroyed and people being killed in varied ways, it makes the excuse of them being caught off guard not good. Like, why are the helicopters so close to Kong and not high above? It's been a while since the attack started, right? At least a couple minutes in movie time. They would realize he can jump and grab the helicopters, be higher and farther away. Guns have range, you know this, right? Either way, it's still a cool scene, like a really cool one, and Packard begins to develop something of a hatred for Kong. I don't know, something about seeing his men brutally murdered might have something to do with it. Oh, and some people do have blood, so I guess if it's blood after the fact is okay. Very weird rules with the MPAA. Packard talks to Chapman and tells him to stay his ass there. They'll arrive at his destination and go into the Sea Stallion and kill this thing. Yeah, that works. Packard and Rayleigh reunite with Mills and Cole, and Packard talks to Randa, where he basically explains how monsters exist, they wanted to find them, they found them, and that their H&M will kill them. And with that, Randa's just lost any importance he had to the story. He was just kind of there as an exposition dump, the kind that obviously dies, and he does, but really late into the film. It feels like with him and Packard, they listened to the criticism of killing Joe Brody, and so in casting these two esteemed older actors, just like, with Joe Brody's actor, Bryan Cranston, they decided to develop them a bit longer and have them live longer, and for Packard it works, as he's a suitably intense villain to an extent. But with Randa, it's a lot less good, and it kind of just feels like he should have died way earlier. The other group with James, Mason, Slivko, Houston, Sonlin, and Yez find a water buffalo, which is kinda cool but highlights how little creativity there was to the inhabitants of the island compared to the 2005 one, in that each dinosaur animal was different enough to be unique, but similar to its ancestor so you could tell what it was originally millions of years ago. Here, most of the friendly wildlife is just regular animals or slightly beefed up. With the soldiers, Cole tells Mills a story.
You do know that story is about a mouse becoming friends with a lion after taking the thorn out of his paw, though, right?
No, it's not. The mouse kills the lion with the thorn.
This is ironic considering Cole later tries to kill the big one, the huge skull crawler that makes him look as small as a mouse, with grenades. Basically how he interpreted this story, the mouse used the lion's confusion and weakness as a way to kill it, just like how he tries to use the big one's confusion to kill it, but he ends up dying, which he wouldn't have had he listened to Mills correct him about the story and how it actually went. Another nice bit of character shading and kind of foreshadowing. A soldier looks up and gets stabbed, and ends up looking like the poster of Cannibal Holocaust. Brutal. And apparently the leg that is penetrating him is actually sucking out his organs, which is just extra brutal. The others look up to see a giant bamboo spider with actual traces of bamboo in its legs. Mills gets picked up, and some other people have pointed out how they thought these squishy things were Mills' organs and that he was being picked up by them, which is a pretty brutal idea that would have been cool, him having to cut off his own organs or muscles to survive, but he would have been useless the rest of the movie or dead because of it. I mean, not saying that's a bad idea, it has some stakes to the movies, but it's just that these characters are kind of one-dimensional and it wouldn't really work fully. They start cutting legs and eventually kill the spider, saving Mills. The other group finds a tribe that is thankfully much more peaceful than the Peter Jackson one. They, however, are still dangerous as they don't know these folks. However, Hank Marlowe, or just Hank, is there to save them and give some comic relief. However, it's back with Chapman, who's actually an interesting character, not super interesting, just interesting. But still, he does add something to the story with his Dear Billy letter wanting to go back to his son and wife. I hope he doesn't die, that would totally suck, even though I already said he was going to earlier. He meets Kong and sees him just kind of doing his thing, drinking some water, getting some fresh calamari, the usual. It's also important to note that Toby Kebbell plays both Chapman and King Kong, along with Terry Notary, so this Jew is basically admiring himself. Nice. Cut back to the group with Hank. They explore the village of the tribe a bit more, with Niev saying they have to go. They can't stay here. Hank takes them to a tribute to Kong, essentially saying how he saved the tribe's people from skull crawlers, which they awoke with their bombs. Basically, they came onto someone else's land who was just minding their own business, started bombing the shit out of them, and then when they retaliated, the people bombing wanted to play the victim. See, this is interesting, and could provide a good turning point. The problem is, most of the people actually doing the bombing are either dead, in a different group, or barely speak at all.
They come from the vents. Deep down. That's why Kong got so mad. Those bombs woke up a bunch of them.
Wait, was he there when they bombed the island, like near the area? Damn, almost bombed the dude who ends up helping you, isn't that funny? We get a pretty good short scene of Packard fighting some psycho vultures and shooting one. They can blend into trees and look like foliage. Clever. Hank shows the group the boat he and the guy from the opening, Gunpei, were building, the Grey Fox. Oh, and Gunpei is dead. Great, a waste of character. While they start fixing up the Grey Fox, Mason comes across one of the buffalo, more specifically the water buffalo. He's trapped under one of the helicopters that I guess got way further into the island than the others. I thought all the helicopters got destroyed like right after they entered Skull Island. This is pretty far inland. Maybe that's how Hank heard them and knew they were bombing the island and caused the skull crawlers to escape. Maybe. He tries to help the water buffalo, but since this is 2 years before she become Captain Marvel, she has to be helped by a teleporting Kong. Yet, no way she didn't hear or see him as he lifts up the helicopter. Still kind of a cool scene and characterizes Kong bits, so that's nice, I guess. We then get a pretty good scene reiterating the ideas of the film, this time with Cole and Randa.
Sometimes an enemy doesn't exist till you're looking for one.
Chapman tries to talk on the radio, but nothing works. He starts thinking about something in Randa's letter, but then the log he was sitting on stands up, because this is a spore mantis. He shoots it, however, so it leaves, but apparently this thing must have been tipped off a skull crawler was there, because as soon as Chapman looks behind him, he's dead. The boat starts working, and everyone starts celebrating, but since Nievs is the only real character that doesn't have a huge impact on the story and has expendable written all over him, the cycle vultures come out of nowhere and grab him. I mean, they were shown earlier, but I guess they just decided to dip and then come back specifically to get this man for no particular reason. James goes to shoot, but for whatever reason doesn't. I get he's high up, but dude, that's a man's life. But maybe he realized it would take up too much ammunition to kill all of them, since they go after him in the water and the others in the boat. Thus, Nievs is subjected to a torturous death, having his arm torn off by their knife head basically, and later killed by whatever means. Jeez. The two groups finally meet up, and Packard gives a sign of respect to Hank as they plan west to go find Chapman. Yeah, good luck, man.
What would you do if you saw me at the red light, and I honked my horn at you, and we made eye contact, and I said to you, "What's up, baby girl?"
They come across the Skullcrawler pit, and I can count 17 characters left. Is it me, or does that number change a lot? I get people die in the film, obviously, but some scenes there's like 1 or 2 soldiers besides a few with names left. Others there's like 10, others there's like 5. Maybe it's just the quick camera movements and shots. I guess the writers realize this, because this and the next big action scene are the scenes they decide to finally kill off all those unnamed extra soldiers.
We need to be going to the north side right now.
And you welcome to do that, my man. By yourself.
Damn, dude, don't shut him down one of the only times he talks. I kind of feel bad for this dude. He just shows up, talks rarely, and when he does, nobody really pays attention or just basically tells him to shut the hell up. They set up in the Skullcrawler pit, which also has the bones of Kong's parents and dinosaurs. Even missed out on having them in the film, as Randa's camera decides to cut his character as he too is fluffed to the list of characters.
Shit.
I love how the Skullcrawler doesn't even emerge from the smoke to kill him. It just appears on top of him. Wonderful. But hey, I bet those pictures are going to be amazing. Bet it'd be something like, I survived 50 hours inside of a Skullcrawler, so it's not a total loss. You just have to wait for it to shit. They set up a machine gun, I guess, on a Triceratops skull with the soldier at the helm ready to shoot for his life, but of course that does nothing and he too gets swallowed whole. They eventually blow up the Skullcrawler but lose several more men in the process. No bother, Packer still wants to kill this thing, even when learning Chapman is dead, or more so has been so for a while now. The group splits up once again, so that was kind of pointless, with Hank mentioning ants, disguised as birds with bird noises. This apparently was improv, but has since been made canon, which is a terrifying thought, something like that existing on the island. Pretty scary. Packard's group gets the seismic charges, bombs, and napalm to make Kong a special gift out of it. And Mason and James find Kong and have a sweet moment with them actually forming somewhat of a bond, but very briefly. Oh, and also this might be a good time to take a photo. Oh yeah, something about the light not working or something contrived like that, whatever. She still should have been taking some earlier. Just because Randa was doesn't mean you can't. It gives you guys more credibility if there's two perspectives instead of just one that is now lost until the Skullcrawler shits and you want to find out where shit like this is Jurassic Park 3 and get some photos that might already be destroyed anyways, but still, just take pictures in case. Unfortunately, Packard is causing a bit of a ruckus with his explosives, getting Kong to come over there and kill the remaining unnamed soldiers and Steve. Damn, dude had absolutely no character yet somehow outlived John Goodman's character Randa. However, because of the immense amount of fire around him, Kong is taken out and brought into the sleepy world, while James and others try to convince Packard and the named soldiers to stop this. It works on the named soldiers besides Packard, as he still wants to blow up Kong.
That's the big one.
Wow, really? I couldn't tell by the fact that it had its own special introduction with a music stinger to boot. What a fucking dumbass. But not really in a bad way, like that's his whole character, consumed by war, wanting any reason to go back into it or start another one. Kinda wish he was in another one of these Monsterverse movies and survive somehow. Don't care how contrived or convoluted the reasoning is, he's the only real engaging character here beyond Hank. The others leave and go into the water, but by this point Cole is done and drops his rubber gun they forgot to change to the prop one so it wouldn't fucking bounce like a rubber gun. I mean, he's got that Death Note movie to film that's coming out in 2017 too. Give him some time, yo. Being serious is a sad sacrifice moment as he sets off some grenades and tries to get the big one to eat him, but he gets whooped the hell into the rocks and blows up. At least it told Kong where they were, so not a useless sacrifice? Yeah, not useless. Kong finds him and ends up killing the big one by ripping out his tongue and therefore organs. The day is saved, the others get to leave on the boat and are picked up by helicopters, while Kong throws a hissy fit because of the last time helicopters came onto his land. Hank gets home, reunites with his family, and a son he's never met, or at least hasn't in a very long time. But hold on, we've got one more stop on the ride before it ends. James and Mason get debriefed by Sonlin, who I basically forgot to mention throughout the whole film because she's barely in it and barely talks like multiple other characters, and Houston, who also barely talks, about Monarch and how there's other monsters, which has gone nowhere considering that all these characters would be dead as shit by the time the movies in the main timeline happen. They'd be like 80 or 90. The only character that could have been them is like Charles Dance's character, but I don't think he was. So, yeah, that's kind of pointless. And that was Kong Skull Island. Actually decent, despite what I would make you believe to think I thought this film like 20 seconds ago and I was basically ranting about it for a bit. But it actually wasn't that bad. You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok, where I'm active on both, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.